Hello everyone, welcome to another Tabletalk review. Today we're talking about Wyrmspan, which is a successor to Wingspan.
Wyrmspan is for 1 to 5 players, ages 14 and up, and on the box it says about 90 minutes.
So in this game, basically a little bit about it, is we're building a tableau of cards made up of dragons. So you're basically kind of gaining resources and then using those resources to pay for dragons to put on your board. And those dragons are going to be worth points. That is the gist of this game. A little bit about the rulebook. We do have a dragon facts, which kind of tells you a little bit about each of the dragons. Not really any clarification or details about what they do, but it does have things like size, egg capacity, what they eat, and a little blurb about kind of thanks to stone-like coloring and intricate pattern of scales, yada yada yada.
So yeah, I thought it's cute to have this dragon facts, but I really need clarification on rules on each dragon, or like sometimes.
You need an appendix.
Yeah.
Appendix would be nice.
That would be good.
Which they supplied in Wingspan. Other things, they do have an Ultima, so solo play, and they also have the rulebook, which in this case is 16 pages. I do think it's not too bad. I did skim it because we were taught this game. And then on the back, of course, it has some iconography, player aids, of course. But they also give player aids to players for some other little things. But anyway, moving on to the art and art style.
I really like the art of Wyrmspan. It is, to me, like watercolor based, and it gives me that Asian vibe.
So here's the back of the player mat for.
So yeah, I really enjoy the artwork, and then each dragon, they have their cute little artwork of that too.
Yes, I do think, like she said, each of the dragons is pretty cool. They are different, so there's no repeats. I think it's pretty. That's pretty cool and talented that the illustrator was able to come up with each individual dragon. Where Wingspan, yes, they're each individually different, but at the same time they're based on real birds, so they kind of have something to base it off of. Where all these, they're all dragons. They're all,
imagination.
Yeah, it's all from the imagination at its core. But
going into components, this is a Stonemaier game, and Stonemaier always have good quality components, so we do like the components.
Yeah, not too many disappointments here. So of course you have the card qualities, which is really good, same as Wingspan, and you have different types of cards. You have of course your player aids and Ultima cards, but where Wingspan has bird cards and then you have your secret bonus cards, this one has dragon cards and cave cards. So the cave cards all have a when played little iconography, and then you gain something or you get to do something, where the dragon cards, of course, are what replace the birds. So in comparison to the birds, I will say there's a slight disappointment in the fact that, as you see here on the bird, that has kind of a highlight of its action, which there are different colors for each different type of action, where in Wingspan there is no color differentiating for that. It's just an iconography or an icon that indicates those differences. Those icons are things like a flag for end of game, a stopwatch for end of round or beginning of round. You have a card being put on a table indicating when played, and then you have this little explorer type icon, which is for him, because that's for when you take or when you do the when activated action in comparison to Wingspan, which is interesting. But some of the other differences between the birds and the dragons is the fact that the habitat, instead of being like a little icon in the corner, it's now these bars on the side indicating by color. And then you have the food, which is pretty much the same spot. The points and eggs used to be over here, and type of nest. Nest is no longer a thing, but that's all been moved up here in the corner on this side. So it's got the points represented by a dragon tail and the eggs that it can hold. It also has a little, I guess, trait.
Personality.
Yeah, personality or a trait that is in the corner over here. So those are like shy, playful, aggressive kind of thing, which is something that is new to this game. Oh, almost forgot, there's also a size difference. No longer based on a measurement of wingspan, because fantasy creatures, it's now just sizes. So you have a small, a medium, and a large, but there's also hatchlings, which are like babies, right? Which I will say, hatchlings always cost eggs and milk, where the other ones are the other resources in the game.
So,
speaking of resources,
in this game, we do get plastic containers. We get 2 plastic containers. They are nice. In the original first printing of Wingspan, you also get a couple of plastic containers.
Speaking of plastic containers, this does not have one for the cards.
Which is disappointing. I really like the plastic container to hold all the cards. We got plastic bags.
So where the plastic container in Wingspan for the cards was also a card tray and held the cards, for the display, this one has this board which has the dragons and caves, and like I said, does it not have the little case for all the cards to hold in.
Well, in the newer edition of Wingspan, they do go eco-friendly with non-plastic, which is, it doesn't look as nice, but I appreciate the eco-friendliness.
To hold the tokens, yeah.
Yes. The tokens itself are the same quality of resources, cardboard, but in this game, we have dragon coins, and they're like a little shiny. And
kind of imitating scales.
Yeah. So this is our action coins instead of action cubes. And each round you get 6 action coins to start the round. Versus Wingspan, you get action cubes and you get 1 less per round.
And the reason you get 1 less is because you would use one of them to put on an end of round goal, where in the Wingspan, let's see if I can have it here. In Wingspan, it's double-sided end of round goal. You have kind of like a friendly version where you're just trying to achieve that many and get the points. And then you also have a competitive side where it's, if you have the most, you get the best points. And then second and third. Of course, if there's a tie though, then let's say there's a tie for first. Second is not awarded. Second place will essentially get third place.
So in Wyrmspan, we have competitive end round goals. And it's front and back, just like Wingspan. But it is friendly ties. So everybody will get, the next best point.
Right.
Yeah.
So in the of course the end of round goals tokens are a little bit bigger, as you can. So everything's a little bit bigger.
Yeah, you don't have to squint to see what is going on.
Stuff. Other things include, as far as components, we have eggs. Same quality. They're just more speckled now instead of all solid colors.
We have those wooden tokens, like the wooden cubes. We have the wooden explorer and a wooden shield for the guild. So
speaking of the guild, that's a new feature in this game. It basically replaces the secret bonuses at the beginning of the game of Wingspan, and it's basically this board here that has a track that you go around, and then a spot in the center that you put one of these guys at the beginning of the game. There's 4 different guilds. They all are a little different, as to replayability. But the way the guild works is basically when you gain a little dragon shield, because it's a shield, right, you'll be moving your token around this board and gaining some kind of a resource. So you might get an egg or meat or a card, so a cave or dragon, maybe even an action coin, which allows you to take more actions, or you can carry them over. And then of course, you have these start and end, and also the midway point, these big brown boxes, which allows you to add a cube to the guild hall, specifically whatever one you're playing with, which are, I will say, are double-sided for player counts. And there's also limited availability of each of the little bonuses that you can get. So those things might be end game points, or maybe gaining a coin and resources or cards, or paying an action coin or a resource for being able to play caves for free or something like that, which is pretty cool. So that's some of the differences on that.
All right, and then the player board there are changes in the player board, so let's go over that.
So, let's go over the actions here and some of the differences from this and Wingspan. I will say that it does have a slightly bigger image of the 2-for-1 wild exchange for resources. There's also a little place for 2 eggs to start the game, which is different from Wingspan. You got to play those 8 birds first. But in this one, there's a little spot for 2 eggs to start the game, and of course a little reminder at the end of each round there's also a limitation to what you can carry over to the next round. So you can carry over action coins up to 9. You have a limit of 9 resources that can carry over, and a total of 9 cards, that is both dragons and caves combined. But yeah, let's go over some of those actions that all cost action coins. The first one is was it excavate? Right. Excavate, which allows you to basically play a cave card on any of these squares over here. Of course, like Wingspan, the further down it gets a little bit more expensive, because to excavate down here on this end, it also costs you some eggs, where in the Wingspan it was just the birds. But in this game, it's called enticing a dragon. So that's basically playing a dragon on top of a cave. You got to have the cave there first before you put the dragon down. Of course, the first slot in each of the 3 habitats is free because it has a cave printed on the board. Of course, further down here, also you get some bonuses and ability to gain
Dragon coin,
an extra action coin when you play caves, and then some extra bonuses that get you some points. But yeah, it pretty much works similarly to the Wingspan. The last possible action you have is the exploring, right? So that's when your little guy comes into play. He does have a little spot called base camp, where he'll be most of the game. But when you take the explore action, if you, let's say, explore this red cave up here for the first time, it'll cost you an action coin, which you'll put here. If you explore it a second time within the same round, it'll cost you an action coin and an egg. And a third time will cost you 2 eggs. So the way this will work is you take your little explorer and you put him in the little explorer spot, which is a black box with a white explorer in it, and you'll activate it. In the top row, it's basically gain a resource, and of course if you have a dragon there, you may activate him, and then you move on to the space behind him, which will be move 1 space on the dragon guild. And then of course there'll be little stop signs which will indicate that you need to stop if you don't have dragons there. The top row, eventually over here on the side, you'll get to lay eggs, but top row is gaining resources for the most part. The middle row is gaining dragon cards, and the bottom row is gaining cave cards. So that's kind of the different exploring actions. So that is essentially the player boards and or all the actions generally for the game.
So how do you feel about the complexity for Wingspan versus Wyrmspan?
So complexity-wise, I'd say, I kind of feel like this one might be a little easier, but at the same time, because where Wingspan, the different type of bird actions were kind of fed to you little by adding different types in expansions, like end of round was not in the beginning of the base game, it was added in an expansion. This one throws all those possibilities at you at once because they're all there and available. So that's one thing of complexity that I think might make this a little more complicated. Also, this Dragon Guild, I think, may add a little complexity. So, it's hard to say for me, but taking all that into consideration, this one might be just a tad more complex.
So for me, I think the gameplay is very similar. If you know how to play Wingspan, you can easily pick up Wyrmspan. So complexity, very similar. But I think Wyrmspan might be a little more difficult, in which it really matters the order in which you take your actions. In Wingspan, if you mess up the order, it won't penalize you as much. But in Wyrmspan, the fact that you can potentially get more action coins to do more things you have to make sure you're taking your actions in your optimal order.
To try to get the most out of it, yes.
Yeah. Yes. So what about replayability?
I think it has pretty much the same replayability. Of course, a random dragon deck, random cave deck. I mean, that's what it is. But also the end of round goals add replayability, as well as this variable guild hall, I think, adds replayability, which of course, as I mentioned, replaces the secret bonuses in Wingspan. But all in all, I think it has quite a bit of replayability. How about you?
So I find that both games have good replayability. They have those end of round bonuses, and they have the guild hall or the guild hall, which makes it always different in each game. Mm-hmm. So I don't get bored of Wingspan or Wyrmspan. I wouldn't get burned out on either of them.
But for those of you who, let's moving on to our overall ratings. I was going to say, for all those of you who might be getting burnt out on Wingspan, or you really like Wingspan, but your friends are getting burned out because you're always suggesting it, Wyrmspan, I think, definitely adds enough of a twist, much like the differences in the different Azules or the different maps for Ticket to Ride. So definitely a good way to keep things fresh and keep things a little different if you really like the way the game works. I will say that if you have Wingspan, Wyrmspan is not a necessity to have in your collection. And if you, of course, it goes the other way around. You don't need both of them. But of course, if you're a completionist a little bit, why not have them both? So,
what is your rating of this game?
Considering that they're both not necessary, and thank you for watching our video. If that helps you decide, if you don't have either one of them, to decide maybe what are the differences and which one should I buy. But I would say Wyrmspan is a buy it for me.
So, I do agree with you. You don't need both games in your collection. One or the other is just fine, if you're limited in space, in money. But we like to collect variations of all the games we like. So my rating of this game is gotta have it. We have almost all the games of Ticket to Ride. We have all the games of Azul. I guess we're gonna be collecting all the games of Wingspan or Wyrmspan, whatever they want to call it.
Anyway, so that's been our review of Wyrmspan. Tell us what you think. Have you played Wyrmspan or Wingspan? Do you like these differences that we've mentioned? Or do you think that might overcomplicate it for you? Let us know in the comments below. And until next time, please like, subscribe, and we'll see you next one.
Bye-bye for now.